podcast you cheer for. Sneaker business talk. It's the Soul Material Podcast.
All right, and we're back once again. It's the Soul Material Podcast. It's T. Mark, the Street Shark.
And the OGEO. Welcome.
Welcome back to the podcast you cheer for. So we're here for another episode of that Sneaker Business Talk. And this time we're just going to give you that clarity over popularity and just dive into some of the details of some business moves that have been made here in early 2023, which was actually a move that has been in the making for at least a year. So we're talking about DMV retailer Shoe City. From our hometown, Shoe City, your city, my city, so their store and retail establishment kind of abruptly came to a closing. And now we just want to break down the layers to how we got here and a couple things about the marketplace that gave us some indicators that something like this might happen, and this might not be the only retailer that is going through some business ups and downs as they are on the other side of these pandemic years that we started talking about and chronicling when we first started this podcast. So I'll kick it to the OG for a little bit, and we'll get you started with some of the background of what's going on.
Definitely. Well, Shark, you have been talking about this not only all of this year, but definitely part of last year throughout this podcast. It's an ongoing theme. And I don't find it ironic or by chance that things keep occurring and we having to keep on researching and recycling these topics because it's real out here and times have changed. And unfortunately, we have a staple in the DC, Maryland, and Virginia area. Last 74 years, for me, at least the last 30, I remember going to Shoe City as a kid, and it was the heart of Baltimore to me. So I kind of had a synopsis of Baltimore and Shoe City being hand in hand. And unfortunately, given the times and the climate that we have discussed here on this podcast in numerous previous episodes, an abrupt close from Shoe City is imminent now. According to court documents, they claim that in 2020, they had a $280,000 operational loss. 2021, that went up to almost $2 million. We all know what happened between 2020, 2021, the pandemic. And unfortunately, Shoe City, unlike Sports Zone, who filed bankruptcy in 2017, Sports Zone did an excellent job of closing stores, trying to minimize its cost. And you saw that visually, even from the outside looking in, to where they tried to go back to the heart of the basics and things didn't work out. With Shoe City, from what court documents and things saying from the people that they owe and the money and so forth, they kept not only expanding to other stores, but kept on getting lines of credit with vendors, banks, and so forth during this time. And it got to a point in which they had someone who was willing, or a company willing, to kind of overtake them. And that's the parent company of Athlete's Foot, and that fell through. And talking to the Shark behind the scenes, I always think that when something is announced, it's like almost there. And then what's going on with the Washington Commanders right now, I'm learning a whole lot about the business aspects, not only stocks and bonds, but big sales and acquisitions and so forth. And it usually takes between 12 to 18 months, even if you're lucky. And Shoe City, unfortunately, was unable to maintain and sustain during the time that acquisition was announced and agreed upon. So it did not close and did not go through. And I found it interesting after the court documents went public, because it's very rare for a company to overtake a company or make an acquisition that's in debt. So with Shoe City, always family owned, once I heard that they were selling, I knew it was an alarm because I know that family and I know how strong they are about that store. And I didn't know the constraints they were in. But if you go online, and now I want to go through all the details of everyone they owe, but they owe every vendor possible, to the point that vendors were refusing product from them and saying it had to be a COD, cash on delivery only. And even before the pandemic, as a shopper, I was noticing a lot of things. One, it seemed like they had more I don't want to say rack room shoes type of shoes, but I would just say they had more of like, if they had an Air Max, it was an Air Max that was maybe fourth or fifth tier, and it would be on sale even on other websites, but it would still be full price of Shoe City. Shoe City was always known as a place that would move and groove, get high end product. I haven't seen them get a Jordan 1 since the black and green joints that came out with the black suede and the green. And that was the last one that I remember them faithfully getting. And I remember a couple of the flagship stores, particularly Minnesota Avenue in DC, Eastover right outside of DC, and Security in Medallion they did get high-end product. It was those stores that was getting it. And as a shopper and me lurking how I look, I'm like, what's going on? And on a Monday, Monday before last, you go on the website and there was a message up there. And then that Tuesday, all the news broke all online. And I'm just shocked and surprised about them not being able to close a little bit better, or at least change their business model. It looked like, again, with a lot of family businesses, unfortunately, they can be very strongholdish on their business. And from what these court documents say, Tony, it was some alarms early on. I won't say they ignored, but you keep getting lines of credit and keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper in debt. And it's just unfortunate overall, because me being from the area, being tied with the family, them knowing that I was buy, sell, trading, and collecting and so forth, anywhere I went in around the area, Greg was always the best to me. Greg is the grandson of the original owner of the store. But business-wise, it's just unfortunate. But again, Sports Zone, Shoe City, who's next now? Because times have changed, and the shopper has changed, the dynamics have changed, the market has changed. This is just one unfortunate incident. So, from Circuit City to Shoe City, I'm just like, my adulthood, my childhood are two different things now as far as how I'm going to shop and how I'm going to go about things going forth.
Yeah. So let's make sure that we capture this, in multiple levels here, right? Because this is uber important. Okay. First of all, how did we get here? It's like, why is it happening now? So I'm going to do something that we rarely don't do. I'm actually going to timestamp this episode so the audience understands the point that I'm about to make. So this is April 2023. All right. There's a reason why we're talking about this right now. Right. And what goes on in the world of business in April, tax time. All right. So this is smack dab, correlation to tax filings, because it's going to take so long for things to pan itself out in the legalities and the paperwork. And what I mean is the original acquisition that took place a year ago, and then now that parent company is backing out because they're not going to take on this like residual debt that was going on. And again, that was the parent company to Athlete's Foot. So again, not the strongest parent company to come in and really revitalize this footprint that they had going on. Unlike a DTLR, Downtown Locker Room, well, they went through multiple phases because at one point they were going to go public. Then they did the merger with Villa, and then pool their assets together, and then that led to a bigger acquisition because they were able to, expand their resources and then unify their distribution online and throughout the store, so that that gave them better buying power, and that's what Shoe City didn't seem to have. It looked like, you kind of pointed out with what was on the shelves with the Nike, where their tiers kind of got phased out, right? And what do we know? We've talked about this in other episodes where I've detailed the process of rolling out a store, and especially when Nike had stricter rules on, the saturation of how many stores in a mall they had, and then versus the radius of street stores that also had this stuff. So you could have opened a store in a major market, but you wouldn't have been able to have Nike in your first year. So good luck staying afloat. So the same thing is that if they're getting phased out, kind of like the Foot Locker phase out, but it was like quicker. And you just didn't see the signature stuff anymore, right? So then you saw a heavier emphasis on the the New Balance, and Adidas, specifically the New Balance, especially with the local collaborations and things like that. Like they really honed in on that, and then apparel, and trying to get you a deal. And then Shoe City was another one of those stores that evolved into. They took on a lot of apparel. Then you got into the women's apparel, then the kids. See, a lot of people don't understand. Like the core still starts with menswear and men's footwear, but when you keep expanding like that, and then to the consumers, it's like, why don't we have kids? Like I went through this with another company where it was all men's, and then the idea of getting kids, let alone anything apparel related to women, but just getting kids into the store, that's a hard concept because it's a real estate game, right? It's just like watching Shark Tank when they say, how are you going to get this product on the shelf? Because it's going to have to replace another product that's already on the shelf, and they have more buying and staying power than you do. So that's, so if you so you're going to take menswear that has a higher margin, you're going to take it off the wall, and you're going to put up kid stuff with a lower margin, and then you think that that's going to do better for your business because you just, because the consumer, they want that. No.
Or 2 complaints from a parent.
It's not about what they want. What the business has to realize and understand is that the consumer is telling you what they want. You have to know when they're telling you what they want versus when they're telling you, not necessarily what they want, but what convenience they want, right? Not necessarily a product. Like they just want the convenience of being able to go like it's on, like you're any other department store or something like that and just go around. Well, think about this. Think about your business, your core business, your core competency that got you there, and then the dollars and cents that got you there. And then now it's a real estate game. Now that square footage is worth less, but your rent stay the same. Your rent probably gonna go up. You know what I mean? So then you have to play around with how the racks and what sections in the stores you're gonna have and things like that. So it's an intricate deep dive analysis to the whole. And when you talk about inventory in the store, you're not talking about product first. You're talking about real estate. How much square footage do you have to actually put this stuff out there? So, those are things you got to think about. So that's where you get stretched thin. And then you're getting like, Shoe City wasn't one that took on a ton of name brands. And they wanted to have more bargain apparel, especially for females too.
That's a great way to put it.
So when you have that, it was just more about an affordable look, from the beginning to end, top to bottom to your outfit. Like that Shoe City, that became a great staple, and then you got some good deals. But what happened? But I just think that you just weren't ready for the other side of the pandemic curve. We talked about the supply chain, the global supply chain effect. That's why you kept getting those lines of credits, because your seasons were off. So you couldn't sell through your seasons for like 2.5 years, and they were always off schedule. But
the court document says that they're saying that they couldn't get high-end product. What you're saying is the actual truth.
Yeah,
I mean, get high-end product because of
so you couldn't. So when you miss a holiday, you miss a back to school, and then it's also Nike. They're off schedule in deploying the release dates that they promised you as well, that you signed up for. So it was a lose-lose, and you had to have some sustainability and power in that. And I just don't think that I don't understand why they moved the way that they moved, because it was such an abrupt stop. Like you can't go. So the Shoe City website, I love the function of their website, because you could store locate on their website. So they shut their website down though. When they made this announcement, it was immediately shut down. Like I was literally on the site, was in the store on a Saturday, and then on Monday I was like, wait, what just happened? And then nothing. The site is totally shut down. It's just a landing page with a message on there. That's the part that scratches my head, because I'm saying, if you're about to you're already doing up to 30% off sales and all this other stuff in the store, I don't understand if you're about to liquidate or and cash out, well, you're still going to take some time. So I get that the cash out isn't like, doors closing in 2 weeks. Still going to take some time. But why'd you shut the website down? Because that costs no money. That you don't have to pay rent. That is the least overhead. That's my point. The least overhead is to maintain the website, or at least keep the website up with and don't let you check out. But let people, and then stress the stock locate so that people can just go straight to the stores and get what they want, and they don't have to, go all over the place or whatever.
Shark, to answer that, Shark, from an internal standpoint, do you think that it was maybe something internal going on to where maybe the staff that was responsible for that, and that's a part of them downsizing internally, and that was probably part of it? So you're talking about the overall holistic of saying, hey, this is the way you can actually get product out quicker, more convenient, and so forth. We think it was something internal that went on, maybe them getting rid of that staff that was a part of that, or
whether you're going to get rid of them or the store employee, or everyone's going to be gone eventually anyway, right?
True.
So why this order? That's my point. That's my rhetorical question: is why are you doing it in this order? You know what I mean? Like, you're probably going to keep your warehouse staff the longest, and in your distribution centers and everything like that. So it all depends on what type of e-commerce deal that they had. To me, it seems like you had some operation that sat on top of some other operation. It wasn't integrated into what you had going on, and you might not have had full control over it. So therefore, you got to flip that switch first, because that's some of the signs and symptoms. I can't, I can't call it, but I'm just saying, like, that should have. You should have rode that gravy train all the way to the end, not shut that down first. So
it's really quick, Shark. I wanted to let people know too, for the guys who are listening to this that are not from the DMV area, just going down the list, because I know people are going to assume that Nike was probably their number one or number one creditor, and it's not. It's actually like at the bottom tier. Their number one person that they owed outside of the bank itself was New Balance. They owed New Balance $1.6 million, Timberland $1.4 million, Funding Circle USA, as you mentioned, them having the affordable lower end clothing, $1.3 million, Puma $1.35 million, then Nike, which is ranked at $664,000. So I believe internally that Nike knew what was going on and stopped things earlier, which was a sign, because I saw that as a shopper. And I'm just intrigued on New Balance, Timberland, and these other brands, still giving the line of credit they have. So maybe internally, Martin, you think it was a situation in which they were promoting the fact that their parent company of that's what was going to take over, and that was almost like a good faith thing? Because I don't see how, with what was going on after 2021, given what the court documents are saying, that they were still allowed to get these lines of credit from these vendors. So you had the experience more on that, but I don't see how that just didn't stop. Like, it looked like Nike stopped that, because like the high end product we talk about usually comes from Nike, not necessarily anyone else. So I'm just intrigued on why Nike's in the bottom tier of their debt and New Balance is at the top. I know New Balance is popular in the DMV area. That's very interesting how it seemed like the lower end fashion or so forth, with Nike being number one, that they aren't the top person that they're in debt with.
Well, one, I'll just give them another like Shark Tank example, is like, you ever wonder when the Sharks ask the questions of like, how much money did you put into this, and where'd you get this, and then like that changed the whole game, because they're just like, whoa, like, why did you $2 million, and like, where'd you get that from, and then how'd you burn through it that fast? Like, now I have a whole different perspective on your business, because if you can just burn through money the way that you did, and I say that to keep that lens on this conversation of, they didn't see the checkpoint, they didn't see the checkpoint to say, hey, you just can't keep operating the same, right? You just can't. It's you can't keep operating the same, because you think that it's almost like the solution is outside, not within. You know what I mean? So it was like, oh, everything else, when it'll normalize, it'll get back to normal. No, it won't. It changed forever.
Your frog example is perfect for this. I'm not sure if you want to reiterate it again, that you said in a previous episode, as far as the frog being in the water. This is definitely that example through and through.
Yeah. This is definitely a boiling frog situation again. So you boil the water, you put the frog in the water, he'll hop out because it's hot. He just changed the environment. But if you put the frog in the water and then start boiling it, he may or may not get out. And that's that. So because the frog will stay in the water because when he was in the water, it was once cold. So they are going to think, innately like, oh, if I just stay here long enough, it'll go back to the way that it was. And it's like, no, it's gonna be too late if you don't hop out. So you have to have the situational awareness to jump out. And this was one of those times, and that's why it feels like an abrupt stop from consumer end. But they were on a collision course, and you're just taking on a little bit too much. So I'm actually not surprised to hear the tiers of where the accounts are at, based on the volume of what they were selling, and the level of product that they had. Like, yeah, so with New Balance and Timberland just makes total sense for DMV. Just think about all their partnerships and their partner collaborations. That's what I was getting at before. Anything that they partnered with was New Balance, Timberland, and Puma. They already had another what was it, like Stokey project where they had with Emory Jones, where he had a relationship with them at one point in time to do the some community rated initiatives. That's actually something that I have a question mark on, because also worked for another retailer that had a whole community initiative,
like a department based on that solely.
Yes, indeed. And you do these things, and then there's these blurry lines of optics. Are you doing it for the right reason? Are you doing it, or are you just doing it for the photo op? And like, I could argue both sides, but looking at where Shoe City was and the state of their company, it just made me wonder, something didn't happen right on that side of the house either. Because you do that, it's like this reverse. It's actually called community marketing, where it's like you take these community initiatives, but it's really to market to that community and penetrate the mind of the consumer, like and get that brand etched like outside of the store, and as a pillar of a community. So I just wonder, where some things fell through the cracks with that, because that's some of the yin and yang that says that these things correlate. If you keep penetrating the market in authentic ways into the community, it will eventually give back to you. You know what I mean? But if you're just showing up,
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? Like, they don't patron your store. They'll take the community gift or whatever it is, but they're not going to patron your store. That meant that whatever your efforts were, you didn't establish equity in that community brand marketing so that it resonated, and then like through the next generation, right? You're supposed to be getting into the high school kids, into the middle school kids, and then then that'll keep recycling over time, but it's just having a dance competition in the store and calling it community. I'm just saying,
Understood.
I don't know.
I'll tell you, Shark, lurking is what I call it. It was definitely a change. And I'm talking about going to stores in Baltimore, DC, Virginia, even the joint that's off of Victory Boulevard, going to a Hampton, Newport News, Virginia. It was times that I thought that I was either in the Twilight Zone, but it was always more employees than customers. And I'm like, what is going on? This was like even right before the pandemic. And during the pandemic and right after, we talked about this in the previous episode as well, where we both discussed how most stores didn't have a grand opening or we're back open. It's almost like things just kind of transitioned to where it was no real big advertising to say to your communities. You just say, hey, we're back. Here's a 50% off day for we never saw that. And I thought we would see that from the Shoe City.
They didn't do a lot of discounts, but they did a lot of markdowns. So you had to you had to be savvy and get around to the stores, as someone who did these market visits for another store, I would actually do what we would call like a comp shop. You know what I mean, where you would actually go around and look at some of your similar releases, and then go to other stores and see how they displayed them, what was going on, you know what I mean, and how they did everything, and then you come back and you share it and you give those notes. So comp shopping, this is a little tip. That was a real thing
from the shark.
And so with that, I was like, shout out to Shoe City and Military Circle Mall. You know what I'm saying?
One of the biggest stores. Oh my gosh.
That was one of the biggest ones, but I feel like that's like that had the highest percentage, at least for me, of a deal sitting in one of the in the back wall corner, and it was always, that was, again, we went through different eras of like store management having more control before these cookie cutters came out. So you used to be able to have these savvy managers that would just make you, give you an extra deal or something like that if you just had a relationship and you were a repeat customer. And then I think that what happens is on the corporate side, and a couple retailers have tried to do this where you took away some of that relationship by not instilling it into the next generation of staff.
There you go.
And then you tried to replace it with like these watered down loyalty programs or whatever, thinking that you're tech savvy and having membership cards and all that other stuff. But it was just like, well, you never put the consumer on that timeline to put them into the mix. So, you didn't have the pieces to educate, so that's why a lot of, the urban community and some of these retailers, their loyalty programs didn't stick all the way, whether it was online, because you didn't give enough incentives as well, because if you were already giving away side discounts, then you can't be like, this loyalty program and you get 10% off, and they're just like, wait, what? That's nothing compared to other things that you can do. So anyway, just to wrap this up in a nutshell, with a couple final thoughts, is that shouldn't be surprised. Again, I just want to put us on this timeline of tax and business paperwork and everything like that. So these acquisitions, they take 8 to 10 months minimum, and then this is why it takes so long, because you can renege and move on, and then everyone has to do their separate things. And I think they might have relied on this too much, which is why they kept operating the same. But it was just like you said, pointing out the boiling frog situation. I really think that you just didn't see that that turn of the corner. Like you had mentioned Sports Zone earlier, you know what I'm saying? And they went back around, way before the pandemic. But they tried to make a whole new brand with the elite and the boutique style. They might have been too early for that, and the consumer, and then wasted real estate because where they had those stores, it just didn't work out. And I'd have to look at what Shoe City's mall versus brick and mortar look like. So again, the malls will stick around because I don't see them breaking multi-year leases and eating the cost.
I'm not sure. Or this court doctor's looking sharp.
They might take the last year. Well, I mean, like they won't be the first one to go. The brick and mortar
street stores.
The street stores might go depending on where they're at, and then the formula, because the formula is similar to company I used to work for, with certain neighborhoods or where they're prominently have the stores. So they're not, that stuff isn't gonna I think it's gonna fade to black, and it's just gonna look real discounted because it's gonna look, the bare bones are, I say go through by the time we get through back to school and get to fall and in the winter season, like what is the store going to look like with the skeleton of not getting hardly any new stuff. So I think they'll just sell through what they have and what's on deck, and then just won't be re-up. And then so it's interesting to see what the next phase is going to be. We know that there's no website that you can purchase from, and sure over time it might be the last one in first one out situation. So some of the newer markets that they went to, those might roll out to be the first ones to go as they expanded. But the home base, DMV, and then Baltimore, I think, some of those Baltimore stores, they'll be the last ones to, let's say, go in some ceremonious, exit or whatever, just to turn off the lights like it's the last episode of the Fresh Prince or something.
Well, you sound more enthusiastic than I do, because given even how the news came about, I don't see that happening. I just see it just being the lights being turned off, and that's it. But we'll see. And my closing statement is just that I just feel for the employees, because you're talking about 39 stores. I think they had 60 employees that worked at corporate, and over 200 employees that were part-time, and over 150 that were full-time. So it's just tough in this climate that we're in to know that these guys are going to have to search for work. And again, given they were community oriented and so forth, I know a lot of people got their first shot in management and so forth in stores like a Shoe City and so forth. And for it to come to an abrupt end, and given how the economy is right now with jobs and everything, I just keep everyone in prayer as far as them finding new positions and so forth. But it's the world we live in now.
Yeah, and that's, again, I think that's some of the stuff that got phased out, is people, your hours going to start getting cut. That might have already been happening. Some of those larger locations, like square footage locations, are brought in bad locations. Like, I'm thinking like Iverson Mall off the top of my head, and I'm just like, there's no way that you're having a full staff cover those stores. There's not enough foot traffic for it to be worth a while. So yeah, always sad news for the human resources that come apart with these businesses. But business is business. So again, this is why you pay attention. You listening to the podcast you cheer for, get that clarity over popularity, so you see what's on the horizon, and understand where the market is, because not all jobs and not all businesses were meant forever, or meant to stay forever. And we're in a new age. So let's understand where we're at and where we're going.
Understood.
But until next time, signing off, it's T Mark the Street Shark.
And OGEO, peace to you.